Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daily Healing Journal where I'm sharing my healing journey in real time. So today I want to talk about focus and flow. And as an artist, this is something that I apply when I'm doing what I love the most, which is singing and making art and creating things. So the reason I say focus and flow is because a lot of times focus is a forced action, but a lot of times we have to learn how to focus so that we can get into flow. And the way that this can help with healing might surprise you. So, the way that I've used this and used my creativity to outsmart an abusive, narcissistic, not just one, but multiple types of relationships, friendships, and close experiences that I've had throughout my life, and even more recently, one that's really hurt in my heart, has been to channel what I channel when I'm doing the things that I love the most so that I'm not completely focused on the problem. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't figure out what the problem is, because if you don't know what the problem is, it's going to be hard to sort of figure out what the answer is, right? What you do want until you know what you don't want. So for me, I didn't want to be in an abusive relationship. I wanted to be in a trustworthy relationship. I am not interested in being with someone who is a cheater or who goes and drains bank accounts or who uses people to get material things or someone who lies, somebody who cheats. Oh, that I already said that one. Somebody who is disloyal, someone who plays loved ones against you. I don't want any of that, right? And so I kept focusing on what I did want, and that made the situation actually harder because I just should have just removed myself from the situation so that I could get into the flow state of attracting the life that I do want. And we care. That's why we get into the situations that we do and they last so long, because we do care. And we do believe that most people, and honestly, in my past, I believed that everybody could choose to be a good person. And I've recently learned that that's not the case with psychopaths, sociopaths mostly, and narcissists, because their brain structure is completely different. So their ability to actually have real empathy is pretty slim, and they can have practiced empathy and they can trick you into thinking they're going to change. So you try to get into a flow state, but do you ever notice how when you are around even just people, maybe if they're not even narcissists, but people who are pushing you off your track and you suddenly just don't feel good. And these people might have a little bit of unpredictable behavior. Actually, it's pretty predictable, right? It's one of those like, is it or isn't it? And that's where the gaslighting starts. And it can be difficult to know, okay, how am I going to get into a flow state? And by flow state, I mean that you do this effortlessly without focus. It just happens. Now, you usually have to get into a place where you can be alone and focused for a moment enough to then get into that flow state. It's kind of like when you're riding a bike, you don't actually think about pedaling the wheels. You don't think about pedaling the pedals and how the wheels go around and around. You don't think about the operation of the chain, right? You're just going forward and you're doing it without even thinking about it. This is something that the subconscious mind does, and it's really important. I highly recommend, one of the things that I have leaned into during my healing journey is learning about how to unwire and reprogram the subconscious mind. Because you know that little voice in the back of your head that like tells you things while you're trying to focus? That's because you're not in a flow state and your subconscious is trying to pull you into what it's used to. And if it's used to bad operating systems, settling for less than what you want, okay, stuff's falling out of the tree. It's really windy today in Key West. But these are the things that get in the way of the flow state. So when I'm on stage, right, and I'm playing a song, it can be pretty hard to throw me off because I've rehearsed this so much that I'm able to get into a flow state. And because I've rehearsed this so much and I've done it so much and so many times, that my subconscious mind knows how to keep me on track, even if it's loud, even if there's distractions. Now, sometimes certain things can throw me off because I'm a human being, and so are you, right? At least I think you are. But this is what I'm talking about. And if we can apply this in our healing journey when we've been in abusive relationships or any kind of toxic situation whatsoever, This is also going to help with PTSD. I don't know what's going to fly out of the tree next. Today, it's wind instead of airplanes. So how I like to do this is sometimes I'll listen to something in my ears at night and you can look all over YouTube. There's a ton of channels out there where you can deprogram the old operating systems. I've talked about RJ Spina before, and I highly recommend that book, Change Your Mind. Here it is right here. You can find it in my Amazon store. I'll leave it in the link below. You can also get my journal right here, and you can also get that in my Amazon store. Shameless plug, because writing your thoughts out and getting them out and then closing it off, I've talked about this before, helps. But if you listen to something in your ears while you're sleeping to deprogram the subconscious, the old operating systems that you're not even thinking about, it's going to help. I'm not going to sit here and explain why. It's really, really deep. And I highly recommend that rabbit hole, though, if you're really interested in that esoteric path. It's fun, it's very cool, and you will learn a lot about neuroplasticity, which I believe in and I've learned about for the last 5 years, and I just love that. So, what I want to explain here and how to really apply getting into the flow state with the healing process is the focus. And you're going to do a little trick. So hang with me here. I'm going to teach you guys something that I learned recently that really helped me because, listen, I don't know it all and it's really difficult. The mind is strong, right? But we have to make it work for us in our favor, right? So here's the trick. And I want everybody to just look around the room, look around your surroundings, wherever you are, if you're inside, outside, it doesn't matter. And notice everything that's red right now. Notice everything that's red, okay? And just notice it. Notice everything that's red. Okay, now stop. Now, how many blue things did you notice? Ah, you see what happened there? So you might kind of go, oh, well, actually, I saw blue, blue, but here and here, but you had to go back and think about that. But the red things you knew and you noticed, right? So that is the focus. And we can teach our brains to notice certain things and then realize that works for me, that doesn't work for me. You can apply this in any aspect of your life. So imagine if I'm on stage and I'm playing a song and I'm not focused on my flow, okay, of just doing what I do, right? When I'm playing the chords, not on every song, but on a lot of those songs, I already know what to do and I'm not even thinking about where I'm placing my fingers. Now I did when I started to learn, but now it just happens naturally for most songs that I already know. If it's a new song, it can be a little bit harder for me to do that with my subconscious mind. So these are the things that you can use. And I know this sort of sounds a little out there for what I've been talking about, but you know, this is something that I promise will work. And even if I'm not explaining it in a way that's really clicking for you, I know for a fact that you can go on YouTube and find someone who can and run with this. Please run with it because it works. So imagine if we focus, we get more of what we focus on, right? And then what we do is when we focus, 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 focus enough times, then we get the flow state. So this can happen even if you're, let's say, in abusive relationships and you keep thinking, gosh, why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? And it's because you're focused on trying to get this person to change, or you're focused on hoping that this person is going to come back to the person that you know and love. At least you think you do, right? But they are a storm. It is not your job to be the sponge of other people's storms, okay? And we all make this mistake on both sides of the fence sometimes. But I'm telling you, if you're going through a healing journey, you have to be selfish right now. You can't let anybody or anything push you off your track, because when that happens, we are sponges and we start to absorb other people's energy, especially as empaths. And it's going to feel weird to protect yourself. But if you don't do this, imagine if, like that little trick that I told you where notice everything that's red. If you were focused on other things, you wouldn't have been able to notice the things that were red. Okay, so you get more of what you focus on. And the more that you do this, whether it's good or bad, the more you're going to get more of it. That's why I've talked about that 17-second area where you're thinking about something for more than 17 seconds. And I have to remind myself of this, but that gets that momentum spinning. This is quantum physics, you guys. This is real stuff. This is stuff that now science is able to prove. And I believe that there's way more beyond what science can prove. But this gives us a tangible understanding. And I think it's really important that we remember that it's not just about focusing on what went wrong. It's important to know what went wrong. And sometimes you're not going to be able to figure all that out. And for me, I spent so much time trying to figure out, why is this happening? Why did this happen? Why am I attracting this? Because it's not what I want. It's not who I am. How could I possibly be attracting this? Because people say, oh, you attract what you are. Well, what was happening was I was attracting unhealed trauma from not just my past, but trauma that had been caused in a relationship where I was completely conned and fooled into thinking that this person really loved me, where that's not true. This person didn't love me. This person loved how I made them feel until I was incapable of making them feel good anymore, because I had been depleted. I had been depleted so much so that I lost myself. And I consider myself to be a strong person, but what was I focused on? And where was my flow state? And then I actually got into a flow state with this dysfunction. And so it seemed easy. It seemed easier. I started to become the problem with this person, okay? Even though I know, and I kind of knew, right? And that was the good subconscious back there going, Kristen, you're better than this. Kristen, this is not what you want. Hey, Kristen, Earth to Kristen, you are way off your track. It doesn't feel right because it's not right. Stop trying to fix something. Let it go. Let it go. Let them. This is so important to get. And if you forget, that's okay. You can watch my video over and over again. The mosquitoes are still out somehow in the wind. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, because for me, it's a little bit harder to explain. It's easier for me to listen to and understand and apply in my life. And again, I'm sharing in real time my recovery. And this right now is something that's helped me. So try to get yourself into a flow state. And if it seems way too overwhelming to do that in your healing journey, start with something really small. And remember, if you've ever been on a bicycle before, even a tricycle, okay? So today I got one of my friends to help me get my trike, who I call Dick Van Trike, and he's at the trike hospital right now getting a tune-up. But even when I started riding my trike, I don't know if you've ever been on a tricycle, but if you take your hands off of the handlebars, the trike will go whichever way the tire goes in the front. So it's actually pretty hard if you've never been on one, if you're used to like balancing on a bike and you can like take your hands off the handlebar for a second. That's not going to work on a trike unless you're at a full stop and you put your feet on the ground. Okay? This took some time to get used to. Now I don't even think about it. I drive a German car. Well, my car, to go forward into drive, you actually have to pull back where you shift, okay? And to go backward, you have to shift forward. And that was really hard at first for my brain. And then I got used to it. And now I don't even think about it. Now, if we can apply these things, and how does this happen? Like I said, it happens from doing it over and over and over again. That's why consistency is key in healing, even if it's the teeniest, tiniest thing that you do every single day for yourself. So I'm really passionate about this because I think a lot of people assume, that everything just happens all at once for a lot of things. But this is where, yes, manifestation is a huge thing, and the positive thinking and all that is great. But if you're not putting something tiny into action every single day, it's just like weight loss or anything else. You have to teach the energy to get into that flow state so that you're not constantly thinking about it. And that's almost where I'm at with certain situations. And I've told you guys, without over explaining the details of a lot of my situations, there's not just one, there's multiple. And so, I wish that they hadn't all happened at the same time in a way, but at the same time, I guess it is kind of nice because it was like all of the trash just sort of went boom, right? but I had not built the tools yet to know how to do this. So me being in a flow state and a healing process is not something that's been easy. These videos have helped me process. These videos have helped me try to get into a consistent flow state that keeps me on track. So something that I'd like to share with you is, again, the walking. Okay, so for the longest time, even when I was still stuck in the abusive relationship, I would still walk and walk. And I believe that in that last year of that situation, as I grew and I got healthier because I thought I was going to be a wife and a mom, what I knew was I had to get to the core of myself and make sure that I was healthy, because I wanted to be healthy for me, for my family. I wanted to be healthy for my future. And I wanted to be the best version possible. What I was doing, I didn't realize I was building myself up to survive a very, very serious, dangerous, violent, abusive situation that wasn't as bad until the very end. It just blew up. And I am so glad that I took care of myself in that time. And I would get into a flow state of walking where I wasn't even thinking about walking anymore. I was just walking, walking, walking. And you can do this with any form of exercise. So when you start with these things, it'll make it easier for you to get your healing into a flow state where, let's say something pushes you off your track, right? Let's say somebody's mean to you, or you find something out about your ex that triggers you. I have officially gotten to a place where I'm like, okay, and it feels so good. But I have to bring up my past sometimes to remind myself that that's not healthy. And I was taught that that was healthy as a little kid by all different types of people. It doesn't even just mean people in your home, right? Because I consider myself someone who came from good people. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. It doesn't necessarily mean that it happened. You don't have to point the blame. It could have come from anywhere, including your school, your preschool, anywhere. Oh, welcome to QS. Come on in. So I hope that makes sense, because it's really important to me. And it's kind of something I'm very proud of right now, where I used to just think like, oh my gosh, how could this person have done that to me? How could this person just move on so quickly? Oh, wait, it's because that person was cheating. It's because this person was with me and with someone else at the same time. And then maybe there's another person in this mess, right? And maybe these people are abusive in other forms, in other ways. And that flow state in our mind that normalizes this behavior and or thinks that we can fix it. You don't have to believe in God. I am not getting religious here, but I will say that serenity prayer is something that really, really helps. Because if you think about what it means, it puts you into the present moment. So, if, like RJ Spina always says, pretend like there's no future and there's no past. And it forces you to be in the present moment. And that's who you are in the I am. I know it might feel weird, but if you're confused at knowing where to start, because I know I just threw a lot at you, but if you're confused at knowing where to start and how to get into the flow, I'm going to challenge you to get into the flow of looking in the mirror and or meditating and closing your eyes and telling yourself, I am strong. I am healed. Even if you're not, okay? Try to do these things. Just say those two things. And if you want to add a third one, add one that you, maybe you're like, gosh, I wish I had more money, so I am abundant, or gosh, I wish I had more safety. I am safe. Okay. Say these things over and over and over again, as many times as you can in the morning and before you go to bed. And I know it's going to maybe feel kind of weird and you might feel kind of crazy, but I promise that over the course of time, it's going to work, because you're going to feel that right now it's the focus, the force focus, but that's going to put you then into the flow. And eventually, these things are going to come to fruition. It's just like planting a seed. And I posted this the other day and I feel it to my core. These angry, mean, abusive, nasty people who have humiliated me, who have gaslit me, who have been really big catalysts in my life, I am now grateful for, because it has launched me into ascending to higher places and higher frequencies where I belong. because I am. Okay? Without these affirmations, you won't get there. You've got to believe it. You've got to feel the feeling. So you get into the focused state first, say these things, and then eventually that flow state's going to come. And I posted this the other day that all these angry, nasty people who tried to bury me didn't realize they were burying a seed. And now I'm growing. And when you water it every day, it's going to continue to grow. Think of it like that. And I know for those of you that are not comfortable or familiar, you're like, yeah, that's really stupid. How is that going to work? Just try it. What do you have to lose? And you don't even have to tell anybody. I know there's a lot of people, wow, there's a lot of people out there that like to make fun of this sort of thing. Let them make fun of it. Who cares? Who cares? Okay? So, I want to use my stage situation as another example one more time. If I get interrupted during a song that I just started to learn, the flow state is not as strong. If I get interrupted in a song that I've been playing for ages, it's easier for me to bounce back into that flow state if I am interrupted by maybe a broken glass or someone shouting, or people like to come up and talk to me while I'm in the middle of singing. And I'm not really good at reading lips. So sometimes it throws me off a little bit. And then I feel bad for like not engaging, but I'm like, I can't break the flow state. But really, that's what this is. Okay. So I am strong. I am healed, not healing. Okay. Because you want to believe that you are where you want to be, and you want to feel that. Feel that. Okay. And you may have to brainwash yourself. But guess what? If we were in abusive relationships and if we were in toxic situations, we were brainwashed in the wrong way. So let's brainwash ourselves in the good way. Okay. And eventually you're going to feel these things for real. And then that's when the magic really starts to happen. And sometimes we just have to surrender what doesn't make sense. We have to surrender and accept the things that we cannot change. Find the courage to change the things that we can and have the wisdom to know the difference. There's that serenity prayer. Okay, so just try to hang in there with that. I hope that helps you guys today. I got to get ready to play my show. We'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching.